Hi, and welcome to the My Dog Made Me Do It Naturally podcast. I am your host, Kat Jepson, a canine nutritionist with an innate obsession with dogs and the natural ways in which we are driven to live because of them. So, let's get to it. Hello, and welcome to another episode of My Dog Made Me Do It Naturally. I am your host, Kat Jepson, and I am joined here today by Gabriella. Hello, Gabriella.
Hi, Kat. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And how are you?
Good, thank you. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we've got some juicy things to discuss today. So you are the doting dog mama to Maggie, who is a delicious bull mastiff. Yeah,
that's right.
And Gabriella is joining us today to discuss how Maggie's eating habits changed during seasons and phantom pregnancies. So this is a super interesting topic. It's something that I have not personally had much experience with myself. So I am really looking forward to getting to know more about your story. So Gabriella, if you will please, to start with, why don't you tell us a little bit more about you and Maggie?
Yeah, sure. So Maggie is my bull mastiff. She is 3.5 years old, and she is 53 kilos now. We live in the Surrey countryside, and we love going on walks and eating lots and lots of nice food.
That sounds like a good lifestyle to me. Oh, well, she's very lucky to have you and to live in such a beautiful place. So tell us about your natural journey. So what does your natural journey look like and how did it start for you?
So we have had Maggie since she was a puppy, 8 weeks old. We collected her from the breeder. She was weaned onto kibble and was wormed and fleed and all the kind of things that your vet recommends. And when we brought her home, I don't think she did a solid poo from 8 weeks old. And so naturally you're worried as a dog mum, and so I reached out, did lots of research, and eventually at 8 months old, we transferred Maggie over onto a raw diet, and yeah, we kind of just hit the ground running and have never really looked back, to be quite honest with you. So she's been raw fed since then, and gradually we started sort of taking a holistic approach to the lifestyle that we give Maggie. So in terms of we don't give tablets for fleeing and worming. We try to approach things in a holistic way, rather than jumping to medication for antibiotics, etc. So that's kind of how it started, and 3.5 years later it seems to be going well.
Oh, that's brilliant. So did you say you got her onto raw at 8 months?
Yes.
So you had her from 8 weeks to 8 months, and that was on kibble?
That was on kibble. Well, it was on a variety of things. We must have changed her kibble multiple times, put her onto a wet food, mixed it with kibble. And because we were trying to sort of work out the root cause as to why she was having the sloppy poos. We thought it might be a food intolerance. And it was just so many different things, never really got to the bottom of it. And someone said, "Oh, have you ever tried raw?" And I thought, no, I haven't. It's the only thing I haven't tried. And I was kind of desperate and willing to try anything if it meant she'd have a solid poo.
Oh, yeah. Well,
it's
a long time to not have a single solid poo, though. I mean,
it is.
Did you take her to the vets or anything during that time because of it?
Took her to the vets multiple times, and the vets kind of thought I was an overprotective, oversensitive mum. You know, she's just come home, she's probably nervous. Oh, it's this, oh, it's that. Here's some probiotic paste, which did absolutely nothing. And and that's kind of where I not lost faith in vets, but sort of thought, right, what research can I do? What holistic approach can I take before taking her to the vets? Obviously, if there was an emergency, I would take Maggie to the vets. I'm not opposed to that, but it was kind of right. Every single little thing that goes wrong, maybe we don't need to go to the vets.
Yeah, I think like you say, though, it is when you start the role as a dog parent, especially if it's your first dog. I mean, a lot of us probably have dogs as children within the family, but it's completely different to having one when you're a grown-up, and then you assume the full responsibility for that pet. And this is how I was when I first got Betty and Boris. I wanted to do the best that I could do, and that included doing everything that my vet told me to do. Which is just, I think it is standard procedure for the majority of pet parents out there. And I think that's where this kind of anxiety about not believing that you are capable in finding out these things for yourself. It makes you scared to kind of do that and try different things. And then it's only when you've started to try different things and seen some results for yourself and seen that oh, I've just fed my dog some human food. I can't believe they didn't die. You know what I mean? Like, and then you think,
still living,
like what, surely this is, so congratulations, good on you anyway. So well done for doing all the research and giving Maggie solid poos.
And now solid poo all the time. So as a fellow raw feeder cat, you'll know that looking at poo is one of my pastimes as a raw feeder.
I think looking at poo in general is just something that you do when you become a dog parent, because you have to, because I mean, obviously it tells us a lot about their health and what's going on. So if you don't inspect poo, then you really need to be inspecting.
You're missing out.
You're missing out. I mean, right? How amazing is it to do the celebratory dance when you do get over that GI issue and there's a solid poo and you're like, yes,
exactly. I mean, something is working. There is light at the end of the tunnel.
I mean, every day I'm checking the poos of Boris and Barney, and I'm sort of like, well, actually, that's not quite where it needs to be. So today we're going to do this. Or, like I think, oh, that's a good one, Boris. And I'm literally saying it to him when I'm out on the walk. I bet people thinking, what's she on about?
Oh, you sort of critically analyse there too, like, it could be better. So it's an 8 out of 10 today.
Yeah, it's not quite firm enough, but it's nearly there. Oh, yeah, the struggle is real.
Understand.
I know. But it's just the thing that we do. And actually, when you start doing worm counts and you have to start squishing it into the little boxes,
tiny pots.
Yeah, you just think it's just poo.
Yeah, that's all it is. But the thing is, I would hate to do it for someone else's dog. My dog's poo is fine. Someone else's dog's poo, no, that's not okay.
Yeah, no, I know. It's strange, isn't it? It's
strange mentality.
Right. So moving on to kind of more in topic about what we're going to discuss today. So you have got Maggie off processed dog food. She's living a raw food. She's thriving, having solid poos. And then she starts having seasons.
Yes. So Maggie's her first season, because she's a larger dog, larger dogs normally start their seasons sort of much later. I think if you have a smaller breed, they start much younger. So Maggie's first season was at 10 months old. And I remember it as if it was yesterday, to be quite honest with you. She was fine. It was, she was a very clean dog in terms of looking after herself, because I know that some dogs are not so much. And she was great during her season. She would become quite lethargic, not really wanting to sort of do anything, extremely clingy, more so than usual. Obviously, Maggie's all about mum, but she would sit and stare at you and cry if you weren't touching her. And it was like, I was working from home at the time, and it was actually really quite difficult, because I'd be like, babes, I just want to cuddle you all the time, but I've actually got to reply to this email. And
poor Maggie, she just sat there like, please, mummy, please,
love me. What is going on? And unfortunately, Maggie's seasons lasted between 4 and 6 weeks at a time. So it's a really, really long time, which meant she couldn't really go out at normal time. She couldn't be off lead. Massive restrictions on sort of the way that we approach that. And she'd also have a split season. So she would bleed for like a couple of months or a couple of weeks, and then she would stop for a couple of days, and you'd be like, oh, is it over? Is it finished? Is it done? And then she'd start bleeding again. So it was a really long, arduous period, to be quite honest with you. And one of the things that I noticed during this time especially was that she would be really off her food. And it felt like such a massive downfall, because we'd finally got to the place where she was loving her food, having solid poos, and I was just like, oh my god, she doesn't want to eat it.
Oh no.
And we tried so many different things. We tried feeding it partly frozen, we tried flash frying it, we tried hand feeding, we tried different proteins, different brands, and she would pick at it. She wasn't as excited for her food as she had been previously.
So what did you do?
Well, it took a while. I'm not going to lie to you, Kat. It took a while. I took her to the vets because I was obviously first time dog mum, first bitch, and I wanted to check that everything was okay and there wasn't some kind of underlying cause as to why she wasn't eating. I'd done my research, but I was like, do you know what? I want a vet to tell me that it's the season as to why she's not eating.
Sometimes you do kind of feel like you need to hear it from an
that
authoritative
reassurance
figure. Yeah, it's just so that it solidifies it in your mind, and the panic can sort of like, come on now, snap out of it. It's the season.
exactly. Yeah,
control yourself.
Out. She's fine. Exactly. So we took her to the vets, and the vet was like, yeah, sure, all fine. If she doesn't want to eat, maybe you should think about changing her food. Our vets aren't particularly pro or against raw food. They're kind of like, you feed what you feed. So they weren't really like bashing us for feeding that. But they said, you might want to have a look at it. It might be the texture, might be this, might be that. So I thought, I really don't want to change her food because she's getting on so well. And then, the devil on my shoulder was saying, but she's not eating her food. And is that worse or better than not eating raw, blah, blah, blah. And eventually I came to the conclusion that I just needed to change the food. I needed to find something that she was actually going to eat, because not eating is obviously worse than picking at her raw food.
Because I mean, with it being such a big dog as well, it's not like she can skimp on the nutrients.
Exactly.
So, especially
she's on 1.2 kilos a day, so it's not ideal.
No, it's not, definitely not. Especially with being in season is such a stressful time, like physically on the body as well. So it's essential that the nutrients are getting in there.
Exactly.
So well, you did the right thing. So what did you feed?
So I did some research. I really didn't want to go back to kibble, and so I couldn't do a home cooked diet because that was kind of outside of my means, to be quite honest with you. Feeding a 53 kilo dog a home cooked diet, extremely expensive, and I was also really worried that I wouldn't do it right, because I know it's quite particular in the kind of makeup of it. I wasn't familiar with it, and I didn't really think that this was the right time to try that. So we landed on a wet food because I didn't want to go to kibble. Wet food's kind of, the best alternative. And so we landed on an Eden. There was a couple that there were the different flavors, and she absolutely gobbled it up.
Oh,
she absolutely loved it.
Happy.
I know. And she was sort of thinking like, mother, why has it taken you so long to produce this for me? I'm starving.
And what was it? Did she have loose poos?
No, to be fair, she was absolutely fine. Because the other thing that I was looking at was, is she losing weight? Because for me, that would be a concern that there is also something wrong. And weighing her almost every day to be like, is she okay? Well, I say we, it's the royal we. I certainly was not picking her up. My partner was to weigh her. And she wasn't losing any weight. And so when we transferred her onto the food again, I was checking her weight to make sure that it was all okay.
Yeah.
And it was all fine. And so we fed her that for the duration of her season. And then after that, I was like, right, we're going back to raw now. We're transitioning you back onto raw food because, you've had some time with this, and now we're going back onto that.
You've had your freezer. You've had your cake and eaten it. Now it's time to get serious.
Exactly.
Oh, bless her. So was she happy going back on raw?
Yeah, absolutely fine. And that's that's how I would know that her season had fully finished, is because she would be excited about her food again, and she'd be spinning and barking and sitting down and waiting for it and like waiting for the release command. And so I could see a massive change in her behavior when she was ready for it again.
Oh, I love how enthusiastic they get about food. My boys, I mean, Barney will sit. He sits as close to me as he can and literally just sits and stares, like doesn't even blink, just waiting for the food. And Boris will sort of like run to the back of the kitchen, sit down, spin around, run to me, and then he'll like run out of the kitchen, spin around, come back in, and he's like constantly running
like
around.
Zoomies almost, like it's dinner time.
Yeah, and he does it. They do it every single day.
I love that. It's like the highlight of their day is being fed. I love it.
It is, and obviously a walk as well. But I have to be really careful. Like the way that I have to walk them is, well, it's better for me to walk them first thing on the morning when Barney's just woke up, because he gets so overstimulated with going for a walk that. If he's just woken up, he's sort of like, still
like groggy, sort of still waking up for the day.
Yeah. So he's like, his arousal level is super low. So I basically just get him straight out of bed, walk him to the door, put his harness on, and take him straight out. Because if you don't, that is another time when they're both like, whoa, even if you just kind of like get you, like Boris will sniff my leggings. And depending on which leggings I've got on, he knows if we're going out, because I wear like certain leggings to take the dogs out. And he's like,
they're not stupid.
They know. So I can't even sort of like just sneak it and then just say, right, come on, because they just know. But yeah, I love that. And it's just goes to show as well, like the power of the hormonal influence that it had on Maggie during the season, because because obviously a personality changed so much.
Yeah.
So was it the same?
And they say that with the larger dogs as well, is that's why you shouldn't spay too early, because there is this massive change in their personality and they are still maturing as dogs. And for me, seeing the personality change in Maggie was, I just wasn't expecting it, and I was totally taken aback by it. And then when she had finished her season, Maggie's always been quite she's a lockdown puppy, and so she's always been a little bit noise sensitive in terms of like traffic. That's the one big trigger for her, and she used to really struggle walking alongside traffic, and motorbikes in particular. And I noticed that after her season, it's almost as if like she'd had this new sense of confidence when out and about. It was so bizarre, so difficult to explain.
No, I can imagine what you mean. It's but I suppose it's lovely to see as well, you know, when you see the flip and you see them kind of like coming back to themselves.
It was a relief for both of us.
You was like, thank that is over.
I know.
So was that the same during phantom pregnancies? And how many phantom pregnancies has she had? She had a few.
So again, I did my research, Kat, and basically, so she had a season, and then it's normally the hormone change 2 to 3 months after they've had their season, that if they're going to get a phantom pregnancy, that's when they'll get it. I had no idea what a phantom pregnancy was, didn't even know it was a thing. One day Maggie was so lethargic, she didn't want to go for a walk, which is a big indicator that something's up. She was off her food. She was digging in my sofa, which she never does. She kept hiding behind a door. So we had like a door in the lounge that opened against a wall. So it was like an empty space behind it. She would keep crawling behind there and crying in there. And I was like, is she hiding because she's in pain? I just don't understand what's happening. So again, trip to the vet. And was basically told, she thinks that she's carrying a litter of puppies. I was like, what? I didn't even know. Went home, and there was just a whole nother rabbit hole of information and research for me to do, and stress myself out about. The phantom pregnancies hit a lot harder, and unfortunately with Maggie, she had a season, and like clockwork, she'd have a phantom pregnancy.
Every time?
Every single time. So she'd have one season a year, and then 2 months later she would have the phantom pregnancy. But the phantom pregnancy would last for like 3 or 4 months.
Oh no.
And so there was about like 3 months of the year that I had a normal dog that would be excited to eat her food, wanting to go out on walks. And to be really honest, it was so stressful. And every phantom pregnancy each year got progressively worse and worse. And her last one, she had milk leaking out of her. It was everywhere. She was digging everywhere. She was crying. She didn't want to go out. She was lethargic. She didn't want to eat anything. And it was like anything, not even the tin food now. And so it was just like, this is so unfair on her, on me. And it was really stressful, making me really sad. And I thought, you know what? She's probably picking up on my feelings as well, because I'm depressed that she's feeling this way.
Because it's awful to think that she believes that she's having babies and she's trying to get ready to bring these babies into the world, and they aren't there.
And she would also sit there like licking her soft toys, and I then felt cruel taking them away from her, but that's what we were advised to do, and we're advised not to rub her belly because that can stimulate milk flow. And I just thought, you know what, this is so miserable. And I really, when I got Maggie, my intention was I wanted to breed her when the time was right, i.e. when she had matured. We would do all the health testing, etc. And to be quite honest with you, she's not the right dog to breed. And because of these phantom pregnancies and these seasons, I made the decision for medical purposes to spay her, because quite frankly, I couldn't have another one. I couldn't go through it again. It was the most heartbreaking thing to witness your dog that's just crying, and I just wanted to shake her and go, babes, you're fine, you haven't got a litter, honestly, everything's going to be okay. And it was so sad. And so we decided to get her spayed, and Kat, she's a totally different dog.
Is she
in a good way?
Happy now? No, I think it's sometimes you are faced with decisions, and not so long ago, it was always advised to have dogs spayed at an early age. It's only recently that all the all the information and the new studies have come out about why to wait if you're going to do it, or sort of like do it through other methods. But you know, sometimes you do have to make a decision based on what's best for the dog. Like every single dog is an individual and they all have different needs. And obviously Maggie's quality of life, like you say, for 9 months of the year is severely impacted to a point where she's miserable and stressed and depressed. And you are. So, you know, in that kind of situation, you do have to kind of take drastic action and go with what is right for Maggie. And like you say, since she's been spayed, you've had no more issues. So it might not have been what you wanted to do, but at the end, it's what's best for Maggie. And that's, you know, it's a really sensible thing to do. So well done for doing it. And, you know, you have advocated for Maggie in the best possible way in that situation.
And that's my job as her mum is, you know, and I will continue to do that, to continue advocating for her. That's, you know, what I'm here for.
Exactly that. And sometimes it might go against the grain, or it might go against things that we don't particularly want to do, like with you saying you had to feed her the wet food, which is something that you no longer agree with, and, you know, obviously conflicted with yourself to feed her that. But it was just for a short time and it kept her happy in doing so. And I think as long as you make these decisions with Maggie's best interest in mind, then that's, you know, you should just take peace from that, and that, you know, be happy from that and be happy for Maggie.
Exactly. And seeing the dog in front of me now, I look back and think that has just confirmed that I made the right decision. If she'd have been the same, I would have thought, oh, maybe it wasn't the seasons and the phantom pregnancies as to why she was that way. But totally different dog, and that makes me happy because she's back to the bouncy, zoomy, full of energy dog who's excited for her food, you know, and her life is now not impacted because she can go out for walks off lead, blah 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 blah. So
and she wants to eat beautiful food, and she doesn't, you know, she doesn't hide behind the door or cry.
It makes me so sad to think back, honestly, and it was just such a stressful time.
Well, Betty had a phantom pregnancy after her first season. I think Betty had her first season at around 9 months. So she had hers at 9 months, but she was a severely deformed dog. So she had, and it wasn't just physically, it was like her internal makings as well. So she had one at 9 months, and then following that she had a phantom pregnancy. And I remember she was exhibiting a lot of the same behaviors. She was like getting obsessed over little toys, and she was obsessed with Josh, my partner. Like she just literally wanted to sit and just lick him constantly, like all the time. Like she just wouldn't leave him alone. In fact,
that's so funny.
That photograph up there is of Betty. I'm going to get it just to show you. This is in the house that we lived in when we had Betty and Boris. And this is Josh. He's sat on the floor, and that's Betty just obsessively asking him for kisses. And that's what she was like. And that's you can see adorable. Boris's little head there poking out in the background. But that's what she was like. And if he turned away to like look at the TV or something, she'd be like, you know, she was just obsessed. But I remember thinking, like, we went to the vet and they gave us some like hormone drops to kind of bring her out of it, you know, to get rid of all the pregnancy hormones and bring her back to normality. But I remember thinking, she thinks she's going to have babies and she isn't having babies. And it was just so heartbreaking to think that she thought she was going to be a mum, but there wasn't actually anything there, and I couldn't even tell her, you know.
I know that's the hard part, is I just want to tell you that it's all going to be okay.
But I don't think it lasted too long, to be honest, from what I can remember. So it was nothing compared to like what you've said that you know suffered with Maggie.
That's one way of describing it, Kat.
Well, you've made it out the other end though, so you know you did good. So obviously, what aside from, let me just think. So we know that you predominantly feed a raw food diet, and then during seasons you switch to wet food. But was there anything in terms of sort of like natural support that you used throughout her seasons or her phantom pregnancies that you found helpful?
So on the first occasion that we took her to the vet with the phantom pregnancy, they offered us a tablet. I think it sounds very similar to what you've just described for Betty. And it was a tablet, and it would be for 7 days, and it was effectively a hormone blocker. And they said that was when she was leaking milk, and they said that would prevent her from producing the milk, but it wouldn't necessarily change the symptoms of the phantom pregnancy. And so I sort of was like, oh, don't really want to give her something if it's not going to help with everything, because the milk isn't really the main issue. It's the depressive state and the not eating, and if it's not going to affect that. And I also want to say that it was something like £25 per tablet, and she would need it for 7 days. And so we were looking at like over £300 worth of pills that may or may not work. And so we just said, look, no, I don't want to pay that. I don't want to give it to her because it's not going to sort everything. And so again, I opened up my Google browser and did some research. And we found that raspberry leaf tablets, we reached out to our breeder actually, and she recommended those. And so we purchased some of those, and I didn't really have high expectations. But they say that you should, when your dog is starting their season, that is when you should supplement the raspberry leaf tablets. So it's meant to support them hormonally through the season. So when I actually started using, because obviously first phantom pregnancy, I had no idea what was going on. So second year round, I was more prepared. We were in a place where we could actually assist.
You got the toolkit out ready.
Exactly. Right. It's time. I've got the knickers. I've got the raspberry leaf tablets. I'm ready to go. And so as soon as she started her season, I started giving her the raspberry leaf tablets. The first thing I noticed was her season was not split. So she continuously bled, and it was much, much shorter. So instead of like the 6 weeks of bleeding, I want to say it was like 3 or 4 weeks, which is still quite long, but it was substantially less. And I thought, okay, these seem to be working. So continued them over. And for the phantom pregnancy, to be quite honest with you, I'm not sure that I noticed much of a difference. But because they say that they get progressively worse each time, I kind of had nothing to compare it to, because I didn't know how that phantom pregnancy was going to go. And so I continued taking them every year that she had one. I would continue, because it helped with the season 100%. And if I had another bitch, I would definitely do exactly the same thing, because I do think it was beneficial. There are other things as well that the name of them doesn't come to my mind immediately, but there is an oil that you can provide. Kat, you might know. There's an oil that you can give, and you're meant to have that alongside the raspberry leaf tablets, and that's also meant to assist with a phantom pregnancy, and I can't think of the name now.
Is it? It's not borage oil, is it? Is it? It's like a blue flower.
Yes,
borage.
That's it. Yes.
Is it? I don't know if it's borage or borage. I think it
borage
depends.
Sounds very
borage.
posh.
I think it probably depends where you're from.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's the blue flower one. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, it's that one. That one is really good as well for helping with grief in pets. So if your pet ever, so that's probably why they use it. Maybe in phantom pregnancies, because they've, obviously the hormones are everywhere, but apparently, if you have like a pet loss in the family and you have a pet left behind, if they are suffering from a bit of grief, or, if an owner's gone or things like that, then that is supposed to be a really good supplement for that as well. Yeah. I haven't actually tried it personally, so I don't know from experience, but that is what I have read.
No, we didn't try it because I found out after I'd spayed Maggie, and I sort of thought, well, that would have been helpful to know 6 months ago, but we are where we are.
I have got some growing in the garden though, so I don't know how I'll make the oil, but I'm looking forward to trying some of it fresh from the garden in the summer.
We'll be bottling it and selling it in no time, Kat.
We'll make some tinctures.
Yes, exactly. But we could have done with that 6 months ago.
Oh, I know. I think sometimes it's just sod's law though, isn't it?
It is.
But sometimes the struggles that we have to go through are what make us that much more rounded and, knowledgeable in the end. And like now, if you do, get another bitch, then you'll know exactly what to look for, and you'll be able to start things from the word get-go. And every day is a school day in this respect.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that is so true. Couldn't have said that better myself.
It is. I know, it's like all the reading and the studying that I've done over the past 8 years, and I still learn new things constantly, and I'm still like I'll be reading something new and I'm like, oh, it makes so much sense, like if you listen to like when you listen to like different speakers, like holistic vets and, different webinars and things that I listen to and watch, and then, just sometimes somebody else talking about the same topic, but presenting it in a different way. It's sort of like, it's just
your jigsaw pieces are all sort of falling into place.
Yeah. It's fascinating, really. So, but this conversation as well, because I mean, I have obviously had the experience with Betty and her season and her phantom pregnancy, but that was within like the first year of me being a grown-up dog mum. So at that point I didn't know zip about anything. Like, as the difference between that person 8 years ago and me sitting here today is like, I literally didn't know anything. So, I wouldn't have even thought to look at what herbs can I supplement to help with this. That's why
Maybe you wouldn't, would you?
No, you just don't. Like,
it's not the natural thing to think. Yeah.
Not in this world. No, it's not. But that is what we need to change.
I agree. We do. We need to raise the awareness that there are holistical approaches.
Yeah, I know. I was talking today about how I was listening to this. I can't remember the name of it now, and it's really bugging me because I want to watch this. I want to watch this video again that I've watched. It was a few weeks ago. It's basically a holistic vet, and she was saying that when she gets a patient in, like a cat or a dog that has cancer, the first thing that she does it isn't to treat the tumor or to try and remove the tumor, or to, she doesn't talk through options of treatments with the owners about whether they're going to do chemo or removal or things like that. The first thing she will do is to tackle the immune system and to try and build the immune system strength up and change the diet and add in herbs and supplements to try and give the body back strength, because obviously cancer is such a horrible disease and it drains life from the body, so that in order for the body to be able to heal itself, it needs to first be repaired. And
which makes total sense when you say it.
This is what I mean. It's like it sounds like common sense, but nobody thinks that way. Everybody thinks, oh no, it's cancer, let's chop it off, or let's
get rid of it,
chemotherapy, let's get rid of it. But it's like she was saying that the body is in such a fragile state already that it might not even be able to cope with chemotherapy or the intense surgery of having it removed and things. And that usually just by building up the immune system, the body gets back its own ability to heal itself. And then if you change the food and remove carbs and things like that, then it wasn't quite as good as 9 times out of 10, but she did say a lot of the time the cancer or the tumors, they would shrink, or they would start to reduce, and the animals then could go on to like have a decent quality of life, and they wouldn't need to have chemotherapy or surgery. And I was just absolutely fascinated by it, because I was thinking, imagine how scary as a vet though in this world, making that decision which goes against everything conventional. Like you would to be in that position to say, I'm not actually going to treat that cancer, I'm going to treat your immune system. Like, if you walked into a vet and your vet said that to you as a newfound dog mum, you'd be like, hello, treat the cancer. You would know, wouldn't you? You would. But, I mean,
even as a human, if my doctor said that to me, I'd be like, sorry, what?
yeah, but that's just, and I think because this, it's bugging me that I can't remember her name, but I just thought, that's absolutely amazing. And the more time she does it, the more time it just reinforces that it's the right thing that she's doing. I don't know if it depends on like what, if it's a certain type of cancer or what stage it's at, or, things like that. Obviously there's a lot of variables that come into play, but definitely I do think, herbal medicine is so powerful. And just totally like you say, you added some raspberry leaf tea. Is it raspberry leaf tea or just raspberry leaf? Or
it's raspberry leaf tea. Tablets, it's the extract from the leaf.
And I think sometimes we do forget that medicines are derived from plants. So why wouldn't they help us when we have a situation where we need them? So yes. There is still a wealth of knowledge to be learnt, though. I am sure of it.
I'm learning every day, Kat, so totally agree with that.
Yeah, well, this is why we're here. So I wonder if anyone else who might listen to this podcast has had the same struggles as you, and now might be able to go and get some raspberry leaf or some borage oil.
I hope so.
And give it a try. So out of this experience with Maggie's eating habits and seasons and phantom pregnancies, what would you say, what has been the best thing about this journey in terms of what you have learned along the way?
Oh, I think that's a difficult question, because I feel as though the journey itself was so difficult in the moment, and I found it so stressful. I didn't enjoy it at all, to be quite honest with you. I would really wish that she didn't have a season and didn't have a phantom pregnancy because of the time that we had. But for me, coming out the other side of it, and you know, if I was in that situation again, this is how I would deal with it. But the knowledge that I've learned, obviously I'm not going to impact it with Maggie now, because she's been spayed. She's never going to have another seasonal phantom pregnancy. And so the knowledge that I had, I've got Maggie's Instagram, and I, you know, documented quite candidly the struggles that Maggie and I went through with the seasons and the phantom pregnancies, and not trying to raise awareness, but to make it more commonly known that these are things that do happen to dogs. And because I had no idea that it was actually a thing. And so reassuring other, dog mums that this is normal, this happens to more dogs than you think. And I guess that having that knowledge and doing all of that research to make sure it didn't go to waste, I wanted to implement it and to try and assist other dog mums that were going through something similar or worse than Maggie's situation, to at least try and help them and make it a less stressful time for them, because I'd been through it and didn't want anyone else to have to go through that.
Yeah, because I mean, this every pet parent knows what it's like to have severe anxiety about their pet. And I think, we all know, especially because they communicate in such a different way than what we do. I mean, we just talk about, we can talk about things and, we can explore.
I wish Maggie could
situations. Yeah. But when they can't speak, and you can see it in their eyes and their faces, because your dog, and their body language, and their daily aura, or whatever, their energy. And if something's off, yourself immediately. That's what I mean. And I think that as soon as something's wrong, you're like, what is it? I need to know, and I need to know right now, because I need to fix it as soon as possible. And it's one of the scariest things about owning pets. It really is. It's the fear of losing them, isn't it? It's the fear of losing them. And it's just, I know it is. And I think that's why I'm so deeply involved with everything that I do now, is because of what happened with Betty. A situation where you can come out the other end and your pet is fine and healthy. That's a perfect situation for everybody. But to have to go through something where in the end you actually lose your pet, then I think that's why I am so obsessed with everything like this. And that is, I think, the anxiety is real, and it's real for a lot of people. And I think sometimes it's overlooked in pet parenting. Like sometimes you go on Instagram and it's all
rainbows
and and I think we should talk about it a bit more. And for people who do need help, it's great that people like yourself have that information readily available, so that it is there for people to see, even if they might not feel comfortable enough to sort of like reach out to you and say, I'm really struggling with this, can you help me? But making that information accessible is such a great thing to do, because I mean, you don't have to, you could have just kept it all to yourself and been like, I know what to do, I know. You can figure it out for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we've created actually a highlight on Maggie's Instagram documenting everything, so that people can, if you don't feel as though you could reach out and message someone because you don't know them, there's a highlight, you can go and have a look and get the information for yourself. It's research tool.
Yeah, so thank you ever so much for doing that. That's great. So I will pop a link to Maggie's Instagram in the show notes for this as well. So if people do want to find that information, or if you just want to see what Maggie looks like, and believe me, you do, then you can go on and follow her journey. So what's her Instagram? Is it at Maggie.bullmastiff, or is it?
That's correct.
Yeah. So it's at Maggie.bullmastiff, and that, if you want to find out more about Maggie, or you're interested in learning about her journey, then go and follow along. She's such a sweet girl though, isn't she? I just, you know, I
She is.
talk
I'm
like I've
biased,
met,
but she is.
yeah, well, I talk like I've met her in person like a million times, and I've not actually ever met her once. I just
I
feel
feel
like
that
I
you get
know her.
that though over Instagram.
You
Yeah, when
do,
you watch
you do.
stories and you see their personalities, and you feel like you know these dogs. I've got loads of Instagram friends. I've
Do.
never met any of their dogs, but I feel like I know them all
Yeah,
personally.
I know. And like if something happens, I'm like, oh no, you
Oh,
know, it's like it really gets to me.
the
I'm
dread.
surprised I
Oh, I
haven't.
cry.
Yeah, I know. Me too. Me too. I was surprised I haven't come on here tonight calling you Maggie.
Oh,
Because
well, where we live, we get called Mags and Gabs, and that's kind of like our duo name. And even my
Mags and
partner
Gabs.
calls me Mags. Oh, I mean Gabs. Oh God, it's interchangeable.
At least you know what he means.
Yeah, well, don't they say that owners look like their dogs?
I think so. I think so. Yeah. Well, I know. Well, mine are Boston Terriers, so that says a lot about me, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've got a big slobbery 83 kilo dog. So yeah, that's me as well.
Oh, dearie me. Right. So, is there, I think you've pretty much covered this anyway, but is there anything you would say to other pet parents that might be struggling with similar issues on their journey with seasons and spaying? Like, if the one thing that you could do to offer them support, what would it be?
I think for me, it would be having a designated person to go to. I was very lucky in terms of our breeder. I could go to her and she had the relevant experience, and I felt like I wanted to do it holistically, didn't feel as though I could go to my vets for that. And so having that designated person who has some knowledge, more than I do, and can pass that on, that's what I found really beneficial.
Yeah, yeah. So finding somebody else with similar experiences and knowledge, basically. So you could find a holistic veterinarian, I suppose, or like you say, the wonderful community of Instagram or social media. There are lots and lots of people offering support out there. It's just knowing where to find it, I suppose.
Exactly.
So I'm not sure.
And to do your own research as well, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because I mean, even if you do find
one dog.
Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah, that's what I was going to say. No, it's fine. You took the words right out of my mouth. We're going to say every dog is an individual. So, even though you might find someone who has a similar shared experience, it might not be the same for your dog. So I think one thing that's important to remember is always focus on your unique case. So like you can try different things, but try to look at it from a perspective where you keep your dog's individuality in mind. So, if they do have particular intolerances and things like that, or sensitivities to certain food types, then, that certain herb might not be a good choice for your dog. So just because it works for this situation, then just make sure it's compatible with your dog too. Yeah.
Oh, totally agree with that.
yeah, I know, but I think sometimes we can be that desperate for something to work that we just want to try it all.
And the quick fix scenario, your dog is in this kind of world of pain and you want a quick fix situation that's going to solve it, and that's not always, unfortunately, that's not always the case. And research and trial and error is a massive part of it as well.
It is definitely with holistic as well. Like, I mean, sometimes it can take a couple of days or weeks or even months to see differences because, subtle changes are what happens with holistic medicine. But it's not always a bad thing because you can't always see things on the outside from what's happening on the inside. So, don't lose faith if you don't see results like yesterday.
Immediately. Yesterday. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think, what do you have planned for the future then? Obviously, you've got nowhere but Instagram to put all this knowledge because now Maggie's not going to have any more seasons or phantom pregnancies. But in terms of your natural and holistic journey, just in general, whether it's like your food, do you have any future plans for you and Mags? Well,
we're already sort of doing the raw food. My goal, I guess, for this year for us would be to increase the quality of food, a quality of the meat, and the ethical background and how it's sourced, rather than just buying sort of like the cheap, because Maggie is a big dog, it is expensive to feed her, that's part and parcel of having a bull mastiff, but since Maggie's space, she suffered quite a lot from acid reflux, and so we've actually transitioned her onto a low-fat raw diet. And
Oh
you
wow!
do
So this is the
find,
next problem.
oh yeah, this is the next podcast, Kat. That's the next topic lined up.
Oh, definitely, definitely. But sorry, what were you saying? We changed onto low fat.
Oh, so, and you find that a lot of the cheaper cuts and the cheaper brands don't offer low fat. And when I actually looked at the food that I was feeding, I was actually quite shocked by the fat content. And I know some fat is good, and your dog needs that fat to be able to function. But we have moved her on to under 15%, and worked a lot on gut health, because it was of the, where they intubate the dog with the tube and the anesthetic, and getting that all out of her system, and working on that. And I think that would sort of be our goal, or continuing goal for this year, to continue that diet and continue sourcing our meat from ethical sources and looking at sort of behind the brand rather than just what is the cheapest on the market to feed my dog.
Yeah, and it's difficult though, because I mean, like you say, with even just feeding fresh can be quite expensive when you are looking at the premium brands, which are, whether they're organic or free range chickens and things like that. And stuff like that is important. It really is important. But if you are in a position where you can't afford that, then fresh food is still better than kibble.
Definitely.
But
and that's the thing, it's working within your means, what works for you, and everyone's different.
So how long has she been on the less than 15% fat diet now?
So we've only just upped it to less than 15. Before that, she was on less than 10, and anything more than 10, she would have a flare up. Whereas now, because we've been working on the gut health, it's slowly, but we are now starting to notice a difference. And so we've now upped to the 15%, obviously mixing in really, really low fat and like under 15, and touch wood, hasn't had a flare up for a long time. So I would probably say since her spay, she's been on the low fat. So when was that? That would have been February of this year.
Wow. And she hasn't had a flare up for ages. That's really good, because I mean, acid reflux is something that's really hard to get control of. And it's another sticky situation that you don't really want to.
And again, another one where your dog is so individual that what works for one dog is not going to work for your dog. And we've done so many things with Maggie, trial and error, and I feel as though we've finally got into a routine that works for her and does keep acid reflux kind of at bay. So touch wood, we'll continue with that.
Oh, that's fabulous. I will be super excited to hear about that story, because acid reflux is something that, I think Barney hasn't had acid reflux as such, but he has had issues with sort of like regurgitation and things like that. And I find that is to do with the thing with Barney is he has been sent to test me. He really has. He has got serious sort of like, he's got GI issues, he really has, but he has GI issues because he suffers from chronic stress, because he is he's just not wired up right. He's just not. And I do genuinely think it stems from him being in that time sensitive period when he was a puppy. I mean, there's two periods when the puppies isn't aware. If something bad happens to them in that stage, it affects their development and behavior later on. And in one of those stages when he was a puppy is when everything happened, with my dad passing away and Betty. And obviously I personally was severely impacted mentally in that period of time, and Betty was sort of like the leader of the pack sort of thing. She was the mum to the boys. She had small dog syndrome anyway, so if anyone was like, not that anyone would come near us, but she was sort of like the defender of the gang. And it really did hit them both hard when we lost Betty, because I mean Boris's seizures started getting worse, so I was stressed about that as well. So you can imagine, and stress from the owner really does impact stress in the dog. This is going to be one of
100%
the topics that I'm going to do on the shorts, I think, because it is so, it's such a huge impact on the dog. And I genuinely think that's where it went wrong for Barney, and I think that's why he suffers from chronic stress, because he was that series of events just basically just shot his nervous system to bits, I think, during that time. And since then since then, you know, I have to work really hard every day to kind of keep him calm and to give him a routine. And then I've tried so many different foods and we've done so many different gut resets, because if he gets too stressed out, then he has, you know, he's being sick and he can't tolerate certain foods. And
vicious
honestly,
cycle.
and I know. But then obviously once you've got the gut in tatters, then everything else falls to pieces. And then, you know, sometimes when he goes out if he stands on wet grass, he has a severe allergic reaction to that. And then he's like coming in and he's nibbling. And then, honestly. So he hasn't had acid reflux as such, but he has had issues with like regurgitation and stuff. And I mean, I feed him the chunks now because I find that he tolerates it better than the minces, you know, the pre-made minces. But so yeah, definitely think we should discuss that in another episode if you're happy to come back on.
Yes, always. I
Right,
can talk about Maggie until the cows come home. So yes.
Oh, I know. This is the thing, isn't it? I think we just get carried away. But that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to do the podcast, is because, you know, I live in the countryside. I live quite a solitary lifestyle, just me and my family. And then, you know, people in the house do love dogs, but they don't love dogs as much as me and you. So, you know, it's great to be able to come on and talk about dogs for, you know, nearly an hour. And it's absolutely fabulous. I have really enjoyed chatting with you this evening. So thank you ever so much for being a guest on the podcast. And
thanks for having me, Kat.
No, you are more than welcome. So I think that probably just about wraps up the conversation. If you are interested in following Maggie and Gabriella's journey, then don't forget to check out the show notes I'll put a link on to Maggie's Instagram, so you can just follow it straight there and hit the follow button. Or if you just want to search, it's at Maggie.Bullmassive, Maggie Maggie. Yeah. And there we go. So I will catch up with you soon.
Thank you ever so much, Kat. Take care.
Thank you. See you later.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another great episode of the My Dog Made Me Do It Naturally podcast. Don't forget to check out the caption for any links discussed here today. And please, if you enjoyed the show, follow along and listen for free on your favourite podcast app. If you have any questions or would like to share your story, feel free to email me at mydogmademedoitnaturally@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Purpose of this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be substituted as advice from a veterinarian or other professional. It does not form a client relationship with me, the host, or any guest speakers, and any information is not intended to and does not diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. My guests express our own views, thoughts, and opinions as individuals, and the podcast neither endorses or opposes the views, products, or services discussed here. If your pet is ill, always seek advice from your veterinarian. I am not a veterinarian and I do not treat disease or offer medical advice.